Emmanuel Manny Hostin, an orthopedic surgeon and husband of The View co-host Sunny Hostin, is accused in December lawsuit fraudulently billing insurance. By the way, this is a Daily Caller story I'm reading. The lawsuit alleges Hostin knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services in exchange for kickbacks and or compensation, and names him among nearly 200 defendants in one of New York's largest RICO cases.
For more, we go to our chief Sunny Hostin correspondent for a reaction.
And Sunny thought her day couldn't get any worse until Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus rolled in like it was comedy night at a courtroom roast. And these weren't just casual jabs. They came armed with sarcasm sharper than a subpoena. Her husband's jaw-dropping $450 million legal mess? That was just the warm-up. What followed? A masterclass in public takedown, hotter than cross-examination under the harshest spotlight. Tyrus struck first, lighting the match, and Gutfeld made sure the flames danced. Greg didn't miss a beat, delivering zingers like he'd been rehearsing this moment his entire career. As for Sunny, the silence that followed was deafening, like something straight out of a dramatic score, deserving of its own Oscar. But here's the kicker. What exploded on the surface was just the tip of the scandal. The real story? It's messier, deeper, and filled with receipts no one saw coming.
About 31% of Americans trust our healthcare system. We have a terrible healthcare system, and you know, doctors suffer because of big corporations as well. Doctors that want to do good, like my husband, you know, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance, and then has to sue health insurance companies to get paid for the work that he's been trained his whole life to do.
And it is funny. She is so wrapped up in identity, and she had no idea who
For years, Sunny Hostin strutted onto The View like she owned the courtroom. Judge, jury, and daytime TV executioner all rolled into one. Gavel in hand, moral superiority in the other. She didn't just weigh in, she handed down verdicts. One wrong opinion, you were socially sentenced and banished from the brunch table. But this week, the robe slipped. Sunny found herself front and center in a $450 million legal disaster with her name tangled in the headlines. And just when it seemed things couldn't get more dramatic, Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus rolled in like it was Olympus roast night, armed with sarcasm, firepower, and a direct hit at the so-called queen of courtroom commentary. For years, Sunny has built an empire on being outraged on cue. Offended? Check. Shocked? Always. Ready to slam the moral hammer? You bet. She's positioned herself as the high priestess of outrage on a panel that often feels more like emotional WWE than an actual discussion. But now, with her own husband allegedly neck deep in a financial scandal so massive it makes the FTX collapse look like a lemonade stand gone wrong, well, the judgment seat just got a little too hot.
That will go after white America and talk about them like dogs. That doesn't represent our ideals or values for anyone. And get rid of those people, and this will clear up real quick. So do you have to actually look in the mirror and clean up your own backyard and get the racist people out? Because that's who you allowed in. You allowed black racist on TV who could just go all day and say anything about white people. And I guess lo and behold, they forgot that there's a lot of people at home, white people at home during the day that are not watching your show anymore. So just clean it up.
Yeah, you know, Emma.
Suddenly, it's all respect my privacy and let's wait for due process. How convenient. When someone else is in the hot seat, it's judgment day with a side of smug eye rolls. But when the scandal knocks on her own door, silence. The self-appointed queen of courtroom commentary has now mastered the fine art of zipping it. Truly impressive. Enter Gutfeld and Tyrus, armed with enough sarcasm to power a small country. And trust, they weren't about to let this walking contradiction stroll away unscathed. They dug into that hypocrisy sandwich like it was their first meal in days. The timing, perfect. The irony, almost poetic.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from Sunny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in Sunny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners.
Greg Gutfeld, aka the undisputed king of exposing media fakery with the precision of a sniper and the delivery of a seasoned comic, basically threw a live TV party at Sunny Hostin's expense. And Tyrus, he looked like he showed up with a lawn chair and a bag of marshmallows, ready to roast the last shreds of her credibility over the flames. Now, let's unpack this $450 million courtroom disaster, shall we? According to headline after headline and social media posts spreading like wildfire, Sunny's husband is allegedly knee-deep in a legal nightmare so massive it makes the Enron collapse look like someone misplacing a lunch receipt. The allegations? Everything from shady financial dealings to full-blown fraud. And Sunny, the woman who used to treat legal takedowns like an Olympic sport, now quieter than a broken Alexa. Not a word, not a sound. Just an awkward silence from the same person who once built a career on outrage.
Climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of them all. Because everyone knows the moon caused the eclipse, which is controlled by the View's gravitational pull.
It's like someone hit mute on Sunny Hostin's inner prosecutor and replaced her with a blank dial tone. Sure, the scandal itself is massive, but the real twist? The irony is so thick you could cut it with a gavel. This is the same woman who's built her entire persona dissecting other people's legal chaos like it's her favorite hobby. The moment a Republican faces a lawsuit, Sunny's already in courtroom mode, delivering fiery closing arguments before the ink's even dry. But now, with the legal fire blazing in her own backyard, suddenly it's all, let's not rush to judgment. That's not just ironic, that's performance art at its peak. Greg Gutfeld wasn't about to let that slide. He dove into a segment that felt less like news and more like a roast battle wrapped in a legal drama. And let's be honest, if hypocrisy were an Olympic sport, Sunny just swept the podium. Gold, silver, and bronze. Gutfeld shredded the double. Standard like a kid tearing through Christmas presents, each layer revealing a messier truth than the last. Meanwhile, Tyrus stood in the wings, metaphorical machete in hand, ready to carve through the nonsense with razor-sharp precision.
Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sunny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now, The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't shatter. So
6 and 0, Tyrus swung that blade. He didn't come to bite his tongue. He came to slice through the smugness. With zingers sharp enough to etch glass. With the calm swagger of someone who's watched one too many hours of daytime drama and finally reached his breaking point, he let loose. He didn't just call out the scandal, he dismantled the arrogance, the self-righteous rants, the entire persona. It all collapsed like a stale cookie under the slightest pressure. And when the self-proclaimed queen of courtroom commentary loses her crown in a scandal this loud, you'd better believe Tyrus is standing by, velvet pillow in hand, ready to collect that crown like it's a trophy. Let's not forget the rest of the View crew, the panel that usually erupts over every political hiccup, suddenly silent. It was as if they all caught laryngitis at the exact same time. Joy Behar, normally loud enough to echo across 3 zip codes, looked like she'd just seen a ghost. And Whoopi Goldberg, the queen of dramatic monologues on justice and morality, she could barely muster a shrug.
For her, like, if it wasn't for her asking that question, it might have been a closer election. Listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be. This should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last. They call him Hitler, they call these things. America rejected them. And instead of coming back and saying, we lied, they instead are now doubling down. So let her keep doing it, because if she keeps that up, we're going to keep getting the Senate and probably the House and the White House, because people see right through your lies. So keep doing what you're doing. Game ball to
And let's not forget, Sunny gets the game ball. Seriously, if she hadn't asked that question, if she hadn't stepped right into it, we might have had a much tighter election. But instead, she handed her critics a golden opportunity and they ran with it. Look, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled, and honestly, they should be. This was supposed to be their reset, a moment for everyone who spent the last few years peddling misinformation and moral superiority to step back, own up, and maybe try honesty for a change. But no. Instead of admitting they lied, exaggerated, or smeared, they've doubled down. They called their opponents every name in the book. Yes, even Hitler. And now, with voters rejecting that nonsense, they're left stunned. So by all means, Sunny, keep doing what you're doing. Because every time you double down, every time the mask slips, more people wake up. Keep it up, and we're not just keeping the Senate, we're taking the House, and maybe even the White House.
Time. You're right. Anytime she says something stupid, I'm going to go, slave owner. Kat, just watched that. That's the second time I've watched that. She was tipped off beforehand, right? Because they had to tell her before, so she had time to regroup. They wouldn't just surprise. Really? You think? No?
I don't know. I feel like she could have maybe done better. Okay, here's the thing. One thing, and I would have even actually not give her any is she said, well, like, I guess that's just what, like, they did back then.
Yeah.
She should have followed that up with saying something along the lines of, and I understand that that's a departure from the way I've talked about this before.